Today I thought we'll look into the Architectural Digest article 10 Best Designed Buildings in the World from Top Architects. We will review them, see what they are, and I will give you my honest comments on what they have chosen. Okay, so first one we have HARPA Concert Hall and Conference Center in Reykjavík, Iceland. Looking at this initial photograph they provided for me with, on one hand I do like this kind of reflective quality, and as far as I can see they altered those surfaces in a way that at some point one of them gets this kind of orangey tone from the sunset or sunrise. Nevertheless, those volumes kind of seem a little bit off for me. I don't think they are very proportionate. I'm not exactly sure what was the exact idea behind exactly angling them in this way, apart from sun positioning that I already noticed. I have a bit of a problem with fully glazed and reflective buildings. I don't find that they are very eco-friendly, I would say. Glass is not the best insulator that we have out there at the moment. So let's see what they've written a bit more about it. The gem-like venue breathes new life into the sliding capital, one sleepy harbor, captivating locals and luring visitors with kaleidoscopic facade of multicolor glass. I don't know, I think those volumes somehow do not work well together, but this kind of quality of looking at those colors and this slightly colored glass and pattern, I do enjoy that. I think from the inside it does look quite stunning. Red Concert Hall, this is quite nice looking at the geometric patterns, and definitely the way the sun hits the building, that was, you know, done on purpose, and it definitely produces the best effect when I look at this design and this idea. But I do feel that the form could have been done better. In a way, it just seems a little bit too bulky for me. I do like when the forms are a bit more, I would say, elegant, a bit more refined. In this instance, I think they're just like those two chunks with a little bit in the middle, and I can see that side panel where the entrance is. Good qualities about it for sure. It could have done a lot for the local community and other visitors. Nevertheless, I am not fully convinced by its form, and I don't see any pictures in terms of how it relates within the city, right? They took that river and kind of atmospheric condition approach towards the design, but I couldn't see any pictures from the city part of it. So how do you enter, you know, how it interacts with the streets around it and things like that. So interesting, but I wouldn't call it top 10 in the world. Number 2 is the Burj Khalifa. I think it's still the tallest building in the world. I have actually been there and seen it in real life. It looks quite nice. It's definitely like a feat of engineering, but to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of skyscrapers. You're building something that's so detached from the ground and from the people. I see that there is sometimes a need for it where the cities become so dense and populated, but maybe there's now a time to find a bit of a different solution than just building those huge tall buildings. For a skyscraper, I think it looks nice. I don't think it's the prettiest one I've seen, but it does make a huge impression definitely when you stand in front of it. The thing I remember though most of it is how quickly the elevators worked inside the building. That was impressive, I need to admit. And the views from it are you know, beautiful. Although I don't know, I always prefer exploring the city from the ground. I almost never go to the top of the high buildings whenever I'm in New York or somewhere else. It's not my favorite pastime. In this instance, when you're in Dubai, it's kind of okay, you should go there, you should see it. It's one of the main things to see, but I still prefer walking through the city and seeing life in the city rather than the view from the above. There is this night light show that's fairly entertaining. I think it's more fun rather than architecture there. I've had a good time there, but definitely not the top 10 in the world, but it's definitely like a bit of engineering, and in that regard it definitely pushed some boundaries. Third is Gardens by the Bay. So I have never been there, but I do know that project. We did discuss that project a lot when I was still a student. I do like it. It's a bit quirky in general. I'm not a fan of architecture that pretends to be trees, because in this instance they are supposed to be trees in a way. I don't mind it that much, so it's not like a column that pretends to be a tree. I think the idea of creating those beautiful gardens where you can walk at a different height and explore those kind of walkways and plants in a busy city, I think is always a good one. I love nature, I love greenery in general, so So I think that's something very interesting, and I think the colors they use and the forms, you know, they did try to replicate trees, but they still gave it this kind of architectural symmetry to each tree, so they didn't try to be extremely literal about it, and I think that's what I like in this design. However, I think with nature you can't replicate it with architecture because it already looks so beautiful. So if you want to go in that direction, you need to abstract it in some way, don't be too literal about it. Linked Hybrid by Stephen Hall Architects. I know the architectural company, but I haven't seen that building. You know, they've added some interesting colors on the inside of the windows, which looks quite cool, but to be honest, I'm not impressed by this project. Something that looks like a block of flats simply connected with some glass corridors. I don't think anything extraordinary about its design. Proportion-wise, they kept to squares as far as I can see, which is maybe a bit better than like some old-fashioned ways of doing the blocks in the 20th century. I do not like that kind of closed-off residential complexes. I think they break away city fabric, and it's not good for the city. You know, creating those large residential complexes without any other function within them creates this kind of residential zones where at some points during the day nothing is happening in that place, and it's not good for the city, and it's not good for the communities and kind of urban environment. The entire complex is a three-dimensional urban space in which buildings on the ground, under the ground, and over the ground are fused together. Great, I don't think that's the best written sentence, but that's fine. Shops activate the urban space surrounding the large reflective ponds. The elevator displaces like a jump cut to another series of passages on the higher levels. From the 12th to 18th floor, a multifunctional series of sky bridges with a swimming pool, fitness room, cafe, gallery, auditorium, and a mini salon connects the 8 residential towers. So I think the main good thing about it is the mixture of functions, and I do applaud them for that, but again, the design wise, I'm not a fan. The Shard. Okay, so The Shard is in London. I lived in London for many years. It's by Renzo Piano. Out of the Skyscraper, let's say, series, which you already know I'm not a fan, this is one of my favorites. I do like how it looks. I've been in the Shard. I've never been at the top, as I mentioned. I'm not a person who goes there much often. I like it in general in terms of kind of visual outlook. It has a couple of restaurants, although I do feel that they could have done better with its kind of ground condition and how it interacts with the city around it. It's quite detached. You feel very posh when you enter the Shard through those kind of enclosed doors, and whenever you go to a restaurant there or something. And actually, it's a good tip. If you want to visit the Shard, you can pay to go to the top, but you can just book a place in one of the restaurants that are there, or just go there for drinks and enjoy the view, not from the very top, but you simply enjoy the place and see the view. But yes, definitely the ground condition could have been better, but in general, I don't think the building looks that bad as for a skyscraper. Number 6, Perot Museum of Nature and Science. I haven't seen that building before. Let's look at some more pictures. I don't like this building. I'm sorry, I know there's some kind of deconstructivist thing going on there, but I don't think it looks good. The proportions seem off. It looks like a boat. Maybe that was an intention with this kind of glass piece protruding from it, and this kind of pattern that goes from smaller to larger planes. I don't mind asymmetry in design in general if it needs to be done better for it to look good. I'm sorry if this is too harsh. I like the use of this natural stone here though. It seems like the ground floor is a little bit more open when you go inside the space. And from here it looks like a nice and a little bit monumental even at times. While I do like kind of this thing they did, that they have the lower ground and the upper ground and the kind of green roof. I think all of this is nice. I think it's just too much of it in a way. It's like in some instances they had like really nice ideas from the social perspective and from kind of, you know, even this shape that imitates a bit of like a natural landscape within the city. I think that's great. But then you introduce this bulk with this cross glass plane, and I have no idea what for, to be honest. It doesn't make much sense to me. Not my favorite one, but I can see definitely some interesting concept. I do love actually the ground part, like the view from here when you look at this kind of green with roof lights, and it's a bit of a shame it's surrounded by all of the parkings and huge roads all around. I think it was more like ingrained in a city fabric. It itself, I think, then would have been much more impactful. I would definitely prefer it that way. Another thing, I'm not a huge fan of big roads. And yeah, now my cat entered the table. I'm not sure if you can see it. Hopefully not. Number 7. Okay, this looks really nice. Parrish Art Museum, Herzog and de Meuron, and I of course know them. They're very famous architects. I like the colors. They're very graphical, a bit more moody, but it's kind of inviting us to something fun inside. The use of yellow and yellow light and very warm light, I think it works very well, and kind of juxtaposing it with greenery around and with darker plains, it brings a smile to my face, you know. I think this is the scale of the design as well I like the most. Something impactful, near the ground, something that if it weren't there you would definitely notice it. This is a beautiful picture, like, you know, that the steel beams and timber kind of interact with each other, and they're very like a simple form, but through the detail something makes it extraordinary, right? So the form is simple, you do not try to make up for anything, just creating beauty with this kind of raw structural elements within simple forms by giving the different kinds of spaces in terms of open, more enclosed, less enclosed, more a little bit glass, kind of giving different variations when you move through the space. Let's see, it's a very long building. For a museum, having a bit of a diversity in the way objects can be displayed in terms of larger and smaller rooms, I think that's quite important. And something, again, engaging with where you can kind of be in the space, enjoy the space, but it doesn't take away from what's inside, so the art or whatever else is displayed there, right? So I think that's as well important. But I do like the materials, like, oh, see, this is a very nice part, like how the wall becomes a seat, kind of a little bit more like seamlessly. I do like those elements, like little details. Instead of putting a bench, you make it a part of design, that it's there, part of the wall, part of the structure. This is definitely my favorite, something that I would definitely take inspiration from in any of my future designs. So number 8, Guangzhou Opera House, and I do apologize if I have pronounced it incorrectly. So we have the Opera House done by Zaha Hadid, of course. She was one of the most famous architects in the whole world. With Zaha, I like some of her projects and I'm not convinced by some of them, not even in the formal aspects, because they are often very beautiful in their form and dynamism and proportions. I think it's just sometimes I can't justify the cost of building them for what they are. Inside looks quite stunning and beautiful. This part, a bit like I've seen that before, the triangular shapes and kind of wrapping around forms. It's nice, but I much prefer her design in Rome, Maxi Museum. If you don't know it, check it out. I think it's quite extraordinary. It's in Rome, nicely integrated with the city fabric, the dynamism of the space inside without it being too over the top. I think she nailed it. And here I think it's a bit too grayish, too monotone. Form outside, as I mentioned, she's good, and I do usually prefer her forms from the outside rather from the inside in some of her newest designs. It's okay, but this is not right up my alley, if you know what I mean. Number 9, we're almost new to the air, and Metropol Parasol in Seville. I think I've seen this one when I was much younger. I actually do enjoy that project. So I'm not a fan of parametric architecture in general, but of course, like with every type of architecture, of course you can create something more beautiful with it. I just think it sometimes simplifies certain things and brings too much focus on form rather than investigating human condition. But in this instance, I think, you know, I think it's useful. I think the form is beautiful. It very interestingly weaves itself within the city, between the buildings. I think there's an understanding in terms of why it took the shape it did. It plays, you know, with sun and shade. Of course, in Spain it's very warm, so any form of shade, especially in summer, is very welcome. There's definitely a need for that. I do enjoy this project. I think the form is beautiful. There is definite justification for that organic form in that space and for what it is. Number 10. Okay, more skyscrapers. Absolute World by Mad Architects. So I need to admit, for skyscrapers, they are quite pretty. They have this kind of sensual quality about them, this kind of curve. They're very like a slim, tall, slightly curved. I do like that. But as I mentioned, I'm not that fascinated by skyscrapers. I'm not sure why there's so many of them here. There's so many much better projects that work with the fabric tissue, with people, with local communities, that engage with them, that are not tall skyscrapers. There's loads where I simply say, oh my god, they're so ugly. But these ones are not. Like, they do look nice for what they are. But again, you see the ground condition, nothing's happening here. If I were on a walk here, I would look at it, say, okay, great, something quite nice, and move on. Not a fan of skyscrapers. I think that should be the title of this video. Okay, so I think that's it. I think we went through all 10, to be honest. Out of all of them, I think maybe the Parrish Art Museum is definitely my favorite. I truly do enjoy that project. When it comes to the rest of them, I think there could have been a much better choice for the top 10 in the world. If you're interested, we can try to make the list of what we think would be the top 10. That could be interesting. I never tried to do that. Let us know if this is something you'd be interested in, if you enjoy this new format of video and in more of a review style, I would say. If you do, let us know in the comments down below. I would be really grateful if you could subscribe to this channel. You know, we are full-time architects and we really could use your support in getting this YouTube going. We do enjoy giving you something interesting, a little bit fun, and presenting you healthy designs and how to be healthy. We're still experimenting in terms of what exactly you guys are most interested in, so please let us know in the comments. We'll do our best to produce content that works with you, that's enjoyable and entertaining, but most of all educational. Thank you very much. Bye.